Hey, it is Billy F. Gibbons with ZZ Top, and you're watching Rolling Art Television.
Welcome to Rolling Art. We invite you to join us on an entertaining journey through the art, history, and passion for the motorized vehicle. On Rolling Art today, we bring you an award-winning program. We'll talk to hot rodder and famed sculptor Michael Cooper. We'll talk to current owner of the famous SoCal Coupe, Don Orozco, and original builder Alex Exidius. We'll discuss award-winning Ferraris with Greg Garrison and a skeptical Malcolm McDowell.
I want to know how much this man has paid this judge. I would like to know how much has gone on.
Annually, Rolling Art staff votes for the segments we feel reflect the art, history, and passion that Rolling Art follows. For 2 years in a row, sculptor and teacher Michael Cooper has held a spot in our hearts. Let's venture into his studio and see what he's up to.
Hi, I'm Michael Cooper. This is my shop and studio in Sebastopol, California. My wife and I have been here for just about 20 years. We built the shop and our home. And this is pretty well loaded with equipment for both woodwork and metal sculpture. And I've got a new wooden sculpture right behind me here, and that's just about 2/3 finished. The dashboard in the back here is for a 40 Willys Woody, and it's going to be two-tone striped wood on the top and probably a very fancy burled type of light wood in the bottom, and it will have a console on the floor. This is going to be a real nice car for next year. The dashboard directly behind me is for a 37 Ford, and that's a convertible, real nice car that's also going to be ready in about 1 year. Why don't we go up to the house for a few minutes and let's just take a look at some of the things we have in there. Now we're in the living room of our home, and the sculpture here behind me was done by a really good friend of mine, Bob Strini. And we both made cars for what was called the Artist Soapbox Derby in 1977. This is a combination of laminated ash, it's bent laminated into thin strips, and steel tubing that's got a automotive lacquer finish on it with baby carriage wheels from something that he bought in Europe. You kneel in the car and you actually steer the rod that runs to both a front and a side wheel. And it's a very unconventional way of being sort of placed in the car, but he went down the hill at pretty tough speed. This is some rolling art. This was a table I made in 1984 for a show at Kaiser Aluminum. Basically, it's a drop leaf granite pneumatic table, and it weighs about 800 pounds and is on wheels that I think could hold a few tons. This is a self-portrait sculpture that I did in 1989 and 90. So it has symbolism for me that just sort of takes in a wide range of things. It has a palette, a painter's palette at the rear, which is a little bit about talking about art and my own confusion about how to fit in with an art world today. Well, the Tubester started when a student I had was leaving the country, and he just gave me a deal on a stock 33 Ford that was too good to be true. I basically pulled it home. My wife and my dog and I, we sat in the cab and we were or I was dreaming about a car that I had ridden in the 60s, and I thought I would make something much like that for about $6,000, $7,000 in a very short-term project. And now, about 9 years later, it's finished. It's almost to a point where I can drive it. It's cost a little bit more than $8,000, and I'm real happy with it. I cut the bed especially to where it was much lower, shorter in the front and the rear, and slanted the top back to where it was about 30 degrees of a rake on the A-pillar, and chopped the top another 3 inches. So now it had a total of 7 inches removed. The firewall was extended 3.5 inches. The grill shell is a 33 Ford passenger car, which is tilted very far back because the radiator's in the rear. And all of those combinations, I think, give the body, at its much smaller size, a better proportion. The interior has a wooden dash. It's a combination of wenge that's 3/8 of an inch wide, a dark wood, dark chocolate brown, and sycamore, which is very light. It is about 190 pieces across the dash, and then that's carved into an asymmetrical design. It wraps around the door, top of the door, and goes into a panel that has a door handle that's also wood. The bed is bent laminated ash. It's very thin sliced pieces on the table saw that are bent into a form, glued, and then carved into kind of long, flowing shapes. I'm real happy with it because it's gone beyond what I originally planned. It's become a design exercise much like I might choose to teach. That's fun when you can kind of bring in the things that you actually do at school, and you can make it real in a sense where you're using the tools that you've learned over your life and play with design elements and push it and push it and push it.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with Malcolm McDowell at Pebble Beach with more art, history, and passion on Rolling Art. Welcome back. We're fortunate now to have actor Malcolm McDowell covering the prestigious Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance for Rolling Art.
We're wasting our time talking to me. I know nothing. Oh, look at this. Lots of this. Look at this. This is what they have at Jaguar Heritage Museum. There you go. I feel I can get away with a lot because I'm English. Are you giving these away? Free? So, you wrote this car off. Were you insured?
No. 25% of these cars don't have the original bodies on them.
No,
At all.
Absolutely. So why do they let them in?
Well, what are you going to do? Without them, you don't have a show.
But isn't it the richest man wins? This is really a dinky car, isn't it? It's tiny, miniature.
It's a very dangerous car to drive.
Now, you like these little Italian things, don't you?
If my wife would let me, it would be in the bedroom.
But surely you can't get in this car, can you? Not
No,
with this.
No,
I mean,
I'm going to lose some weight so I can actually drive the car.
okay.
Watch me getting out of the car. Whoa, come on. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ed Gilbertson, who's the chief Ferrari judge and truly one of the most innovative, most interesting people left in Western America today.
So now, I want to know how much this man has paid this judge. I would like to know how much has gone on here. Yeah, can we have it back? Can you give it to me too? I think you had. How very nice to see you. Have you seen anything you like? There's nothing here, of course.
Just women, but his wife's here.
Yeah, okay.
Greg does my talking for me.
I see.
I better leave.
You know what? I think you better had. All right.
Are we in focus? Go ahead.
Yeah, what do you mean, are we focused? Have you noticed the way I have got mine back to the
ahead.
camera? And I'm the actor.
You're okay. Turn your head to the right.
Now tell me this.
Tom, you'll be
Tell
fine.
me this. How many Ferraris have you got?
A few.
Just tell me how many
I
you've
just
got.
have
What's
a
the matter
few.
with
I
you?
have a
You
few.
Bashville? Were you worried
No,
about the tax
I
people?
never do numbers.
Oh,
That's
the
a good part.
The
Yeah.
IRS, are they interested in this or something?
They're always interested in me. I'm one of their
How
most
many
fascinating-
bloody cars have you got?
I
Come
have
on,
a
Greg.
few. I have a barn full.
He's got a barn full. This man has the greatest Ferraris in California. Will you please tell us something about this one? It's a
Very
very...
interesting car.
Okay, come on, here we go.
This car was built in 1955. It was built by a friend of Mr. Ferrari's. His name was Dr. Ettore Wax. Dr. Wax was very interesting because Dr. Wax was the
Nothing to do with the House of
distributor-
Wax, right?
No,
Okay.
was a distributor for Johnny Walker whiskey.
Oh.
And Mr. Ferrari subsequently had several basements filled with Johnny
Johnny
Walker,
Walker
whiskey.
whiskey.
And when he said, gee, Mr. Ferrari, can you help me get a very special car? And he said, well, anybody that's got that kind of whiskey can't be all bad. So he built this car for him. This is a one-off, designed and built by Scaglietti. He built and designed this car. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, about 4 weeks after he delivered the car to Dr. Wax, it was stolen. 2 years later, it showed up in Chicago, and someone in the Chicago Ferrari Club said, my goodness, what a nice car. And the fellow that had it panicked immediately and obviously drove it out of town.
Drove it to New York.
No, 2 years later, it showed up in Oregon somewhere.
Wow.
And then again, somebody from the Pacific Coast Ferrari Club or something went, I've seen pictures of this car. And the guy panicked the second time, except this time he took an acetylene torch and took the body off,
Oh my God.
threw it in a lake or a dumpster or something, and sold the running chassis to a farmer up there.
Wow.
Probably for $1,000, if not less.
Wow.
And then the story got around, and I put an ad, heard about it, in weekly Oregon newspapers. And I said, I'm going to offer $1,000 reward for information about the car.
Yeah.
And about a month went by, and finally some guy called, and he said, hello there. He said, would you go to 1,500? And I said, why? He said, well, I don't have the car, but for 500, I'll tell you who does have the car, or the
wow.
chassis.
Yeah.
I bought it, put it in the box. I sent it back to Italy. I've known Mr. Ferrari since 1955.
Wow.
I told him the story, and he said, that's very nice. And they decided to restore the car at the factory.
Absolutely as was.
They got as was, as is, as was. As was is a better word.
Of course it is. As was,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
And they brought all the old guys out that had long since retired, and
Wow.
spent 2.5 years, finished this car, put it on an airplane, brought it to Pebble Beach 12 years ago.
Yeah.
It won here, first place.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
This is the second time it's been in Pebble Beach.
So it's sort of soiled this time, isn't it? What do you
Except-
do? What else? You
except
repaint
it's-
it?
Except no, same car. Except it's for display only.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the story.
Well, that's much more interesting than just going to the showroom and buying one. Why did you want this car particularly? Why would you put an ad in a paper? I mean,
Because
were
I
you
had
that
a-
obsessed? Are you that kind of a nut?
For this type of car, I wanted it desperately.
Why? Why?
It was a one-off, and I collect.
I
one-off
know
cars.
that's where you've got the greatest collection,
That's why
probably
I
in the
collect
world.
one-off cars.
I know. Wow.
And
Well, that's one of the greatest stories we'll ever hear about a Ferrari. I
I'll
mean,
come back in an hour. I'll tell you another one.
Oh, you will?
Same story, but a little different.
Okay, well, let's just show me what's different about this car, besides just the body work. Obviously,
Well,
I've never seen a Ferrari with fins, for one thing.
Stainless steel roof.
Oh, wow.
All the metal material on the car is made out of stainless steel.
Yeah, wow.
Now, in 1956, in that era, they built a car called Superfast, the original Superfast.
Sure, yeah.
It had fins on it, 1955.
Did it really?
And then later on, a designer by the name of Ghia built a few cars.
Not the common gear we all know and love.
No, the other
Not
Ghia.
the-
Actually related.
Not Richard.
Yeah.
Richard, I didn't know he was into cars.
Okay, and he went into that, and Ghia built about 3, and then
Wow.
Scaglietti heard about it, so he designed this.
It's
And
one of the
everything you see is
most beautiful
yeah,
designs, isn't
it's
it?
all stainless steel.
Wow, wow. That's fabulous, fabulous.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Greg. That was a great story. I had no idea. No idea. That's fabulous, isn't it? Huh? Thank you again. But I have to say, if you like Ferraris, this is the one.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Rolling Art. Welcome back to Rolling Art.
Hi, I'm Ken Gross. This is Donna Roscoe. It's 3 days before Pebble Beach. The third time we've had hot rods at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance up against Bugattis and Duesenbergs and everything else. And Don and his crew have just finished restoring one of the most famous hot rods of all time, the SoCal Coupe. It was built in 1953 and it set records both at Bonneville and at the drags. I think the top speed the first time it ran was a little over 172 miles an hour. Don, how long have you had this car?
I've had about 5 years, and we've been on it in earnest since Pebble Beach announced that competition coupes were going to be included in the Concours. We worked on the metal work alone because of the salt damage. A car that had been raced at Bonneville for 45 years. It took over a year and a half to eradicate the rust in the frame and the body, but it's now stable. The paint's still wet, but we'll be there.
This car has what would have been considered a pretty radical engine for its time, a 59A Mercury block with a set of Arden heads designed by Zora Arkus-Duntov, who of course was very active with the Corvettes. It also runs a front-driven 471 Jimmy blower. I'm holding a cover of Hot Rod magazine from May 1954. They call this car the Double Threat Coupe because it could run both at Bonneville and at the drags. It's a very impressive piece, and we're heading into what is quite the contest at Pebble Beach where hot rods are concerned. Interestingly enough, Bruce Meyer will be here with the Pearson Brothers Coupe, so we have a very interesting rubber match.
You know, Bruce and I date back to our old college days. Bruce is a great guy, and like me, has a respect for the history and origins of hot rodding. He also is a very competitive guy, although he'll tell you he's not. And I think our adage around here is that you do all you can all the time, and you let the chips fall where they are. And so I know and would fully expect that Bruce has pulled out all the stops with the Pearson Coupe, which is equally significant. I'm as curious as anybody as to how this rubber match is gonna show up.
Thanks again for talking with us. Best of luck on Sunday.
I'm sure we can use all the luck we can get at this point, I'll tell you. Thank you very much.
Let's take a look at the SoCal Coupe, a real close look. This car was built in 1953, and they got it ready for the Bonneville, the fall season, August, September. It's running a 296-inch Arden Mercury, running 1 full atmosphere of boost with a 471 GM blower and 4 Stromberg 97s. Don and his crew estimate that it's putting out somewhere in the vicinity of 400 horsepower. For its day, it was beautifully built, and some of the details on it now are still wonderful. The front axle is a dropped and drilled axle for lightness, and you'll notice that there are holes everywhere in this car. That weight was the enemy, and they wanted to get them as light as possible. The severely chopped roof, which makes it a competition coupe, was actually modeled after the roof on the Pearson Brothers Coupe. The Pearsons in 1950 were the first guys with Bobby Meeks to take advantage of the Southern California Timing Association rules that basically said you had to have 7 inches of vertical windshield height. The rules didn't say anything about the angle of the windshield, so when they built the car, they laid it back as far as possible, and in the case of the Pearson car and this one, a full belly pan underneath really helped aerodynamics. When you look at a lot of these early race cars, they used cheap and nasty flex pipe for the exhaust because they frequently changed engines on these cars during competition so that they could set records in several classes depending on the size of the engine. The ignition in this car is also interesting. It's a Scintilla Vertex Magneto, probably the hottest spark you could get at the time. And the whole combination is one we heard it fire up that will definitely get some people smiling on Sunday at Pebble Beach. Alex Exidius has joined us looking at a car that he first drove 48 years ago. What do you think of this restoration?
You saw me come in the door. I was stunned. I mean, I've been up a couple of times and watched Brad work on it and everything and his team, and I was impressed then, but I'm overwhelmed now, Kenny. It's just... You know, it's a thrill to see it again, of course, after all these years and everything of Travis running it in blue and white and everything. It's a thrill to see it, but to see it with the Arden in it and everything is just so marvelous. It's just, and the old shocks and everything. I mean, they've done so much research, and I'm so proud of what they've found. That's the water tank in the back. The fuel tank's a P51 tank. I mean, it's just marvelous what they've done, the research and everything, and the authenticity and I'm almost tempted to say it's too bad they didn't get it as nice and clean as we had it in those days.
I mean, your shop had a reputation for best appearing car and crew many, many times.
Well, we did, and we were proud of that. And, you know, we also had the team outfits and the colors and everything. We try to do a good job, but this is magnificent.
Great.
I'm just thrilled to be here and looking forward to Sunday at Pebble Beach.
So are we. Thanks, Alan.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed our show today, Rolling Arts Favorites. We invite you to join us in this process. Check out our website, www.rollingarttv.com. Simply click on Viewer's Choice and vote for your favorite segment.
Held the Class C record, 172 miles an hour, and 95, this car went 235 miles an hour. And there's Don Orozco. This tremendously fast car, maybe the fastest of all the rods. Alex Zidius is still here. And congratulations, Don. The fuel tank.
We'll be right back with more Rolling Art. Welcome back. Next time on Rolling Art, we'll look at some low stuff. And some high stuff. And some hot stuff with Estelle Reyna. Join us.